My God, Ronnie, do you have a new camera? You're in living color.
It's not sunny and the curtains are drawn. Usually the curtains are drawn and it's been sunny. So it's a lot darker in the room.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call this special meeting of Lunenburg Town Council to order. It's Tuesday, September 29th, and we are meeting via Zoom and YouTube live broadcast. And we have a single agenda item to deal with today, which is the reason for this special meeting. And before I ask for an approval of the agenda, I'd just like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, which is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And also, with having done that as a normal course of business, just want to make mention that October 1st, which is in just a couple of days' time, is known as Treaty Day, and it marks the beginning of Mi'kmaq Heritage Month. And so we will be celebrating throughout the month and looking forward to working with the Mi'kmaq in our town and surrounding area to bring greater recognition to that part of our history. And we will be raising the Mi'kmaq flag as we have done in recent years to acknowledge our relationship with the Mi'kmaq people and the fact that we are in Mi'kma'ki. So having done that, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda today, please. Moved by Councillor Risser. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mosier, thank you very much. All in favor? It is unanimously approved. So motion is carried, and we can move right into the meat of the meeting, which is a discussion around the arena reopening, determining a date with COVID-19 pandemic health requirements or restrictions and so on. So we do have a quite comprehensive staff report prepared for us on this topic. So I'd ask Ms. Cunningham if she would highlight that for us all.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I will just go through the staff report, as you will see on the screen. So in August 2020, Council made the difficult decision that the arena would have a delayed opening due to provincial government pandemic restrictions. On September 18th, the provincial government announced an increase in the allowable numbers of participants in performing arts, sports, and organized physical activity. Effective October 1, the number of people who can participate in one of these activities without physical distancing will increase from 10 to 50. The gathering limit of 50 people allows for the traditional hockey, public skates, and other arena activities to commence in a more normalized fashion. Hockey Nova Scotia, who is a provincial governing body of all the ice hockey Nova Scotia, held a provincial meeting on September 24th to discuss the updated Rebound Hockey Plan, which is a comprehensive return to play framework for hockey. There were over 165 participants across Nova Scotia who attended this meeting. Highlights from that meeting include games can now be played against other associations in Nova Scotia. As of right now, no out of province games. Minor hockey league games can begin October the 15th. No tournaments in the month of October. Details around COVID-19 plans will need to be approved prior to a tournament starting. More details to follow from Hockey Nova Scotia. Facility COVID-19 plans will be facility specific and will have their own specific guidelines based on the facility size, capacities, and services offered. There are two quotes that the executive director, Amy Walsh from Hockey Nova Scotia, said at the very beginning of the meeting, with which I just thought was relevant for this discussion as well. It says, "We need to remember that we're still in a state of emergency and in a pandemic, and we'll need to follow public health protocols. As well, facilities are not in an easy position right now, so we need to keep ourselves accountable on and off the ice." South Shore Minor Hockey has an extended season, which will begin on October 13th until April 23rd. Their weekly rentals are anticipated to be approximately 80% compared to last season. All of the adult hockey teams have shown interest in returning back to the arena this season. Teams will also be notified of facility terms and conditions in place. There may also be a slight change in their traditional rental time slots due to increased transition time, which I will discuss later. Staffing expectations. The arena typically only has one staff member on per shift, one as a day shift and one on an evening shift. This staff member is also responsible to look after the Lunenburg Community Center and outdoor sporting and recreational facilities. The additional COVID-19 requirements for reopening the arena include cleaning and sanitizing dressing rooms, players' benches, and high-touch areas between every rental. Ensuring renters exit the facility within a time set period prior to the next renter's entrance to minimize traffic in our small area. Controlling entrance into the facility. Ensuring health assessments are completed prior to entrance. And for the health assessment, screening must be done before each Hockey Nova Scotia activity. So that would be minor hockey. So minor hockey specifically, each team will have their own safety rep, and they will be responsible for doing the health assessment for every child and coach that goes before every practice and game. This record is kept by the team and will not be provided to the arena unless it's necessary for a potential outbreak. They are required to keep this information for 30 days. There will also be an association safety rep who will be one of the main point of contacts regarding the COVID-19 terms and conditions for the arena. And another COVID-19 requirement is regarding the user behavior and compliance, such as masks and social distancing. These COVID-19 measures are in addition to the ice cleaning between rentals, facility maintenance, such as snow removal, occasional mechanical difficulties, taking payments and questions from renters, rentals at the community center, to lock and unlock facilities and conduct sanitizing between those rentals. Current staff contingencies. A recreation staff member is currently on sick leave and will not be returning to work until the end of November. Assistance will be required by Public Works to make the ice, as the process needs a minimum of 4 people. A contractor will be temporarily contracted to cover off the sick leave shifts until the recreation staff member is able to return. This is included in the financial information below, which is $3,200. Reopening the arena next month will result in no staff members being temporarily laid off. If an arena employee becomes ill or suspected to have COVID-19, external personnel will likely be required to fill in that shift, or the arena may have to be temporarily closed that day if we are unable to find somebody to fill in. Part-time COVID-19 support staff. Our current practice of only having one member working per shift poses many challenges with all of these new COVID-19 requirements. It is the responsibility of the town, who is the facility operator, to ensure that the arena is a safe and clean facility for all users and to abide by the new COVID-19 safety rules, which is a shared responsibility. A part-time staff member will be essential to ensure all those entering into the facility are aware of the terms and conditions in place for our arena, are in compliance with the terms set out, and continue to abide by these terms throughout the rental period. Many weekend rentals consist of minor hockey games from away associations. It is essential that visiting players, guardians, and spectators are aware of our own facility-specific plans, and we support them in meeting these requirements, such as when they're permitted to enter the arena before a practice or a game, make sure they're wearing masks, social distancing, following directional flow, when to know to enter dressing rooms after sanitizing, etc. It is proposed to have a part-time staff member on weekends, Saturday and Sunday during the arena operations, and weekday evenings for the first month that the arena is open. The weekend support staff would be an additional $7,000 for the entire season, and evening support staff would be $1,200 for the first month that the arena is open. Smaller facilities in Nova Scotia are also facing similar challenges to implement these COVID-19 restrictions. And some are also planning to hire part-time staff, such as the Chester Memorial Arena. Ice times this year will have an increased transition times of 30 minutes and compared to 15 minutes from previous years. This is to ensure minimum patron traffic and allow time for proper disinfecting between those rentals. This is similar to other smaller arenas, such as the Chester Memorial Arena. We are anticipating that we will be able to keep the dressing rooms open for users with a maximum time usage restriction. Staff requires time between each rental to clean these dressing rooms prior to the next rental. The increased transition time would still be required even if the dressing rooms were closed, as the players' benches require disinfecting prior to the next rental. And it has been said that there could be a potential second wave of COVID-19 by the provincial government. So our fans, the Recreation Facility Association of Nova Scotia, has stated that all recreation facilities are required to have a reopening plan in place, but they are not required to be submitted, but they must be made available to users of the facility. The Lunenburg Arena terms and conditions for COVID have been created and may be flexible as more information becomes available. This document will be circulated to all renters and the public prior to the arena opening. Staff are proposing an arena reopening date of Monday, October 26, 2020, with an extended season until April 23rd. Typically, the arena closes at the end of March. This would align with minor hockey's extended season and also continue to have the arena operate for 6 months of the year. This will provide staff with the time to make ice, put up the directional flow and new COVID signs that are required, to finalize the weekly schedule, create and receive signed rental agreements, ensure that all renters are aware of the new COVID conditions that are in place, and provide adult rental teams the time to organize their game schedule. An October 26th rental period, or opening date, would be the best time for minor hockey as well, as they will likely have their teams formed for the season at that time. Typically, minor hockey has their tryouts in September. However, due to the Hockey Nova Scotia restrictions, they were not able to begin until October 1st, so their season has also been delayed. The process to begin putting in the ice would begin next week on the week of October 5th. The earliest possible date that the arena could open is October 19th, 2020. The earliest that the refrigeration contractor could do the startup would be on Friday, October 2nd, which is a day later than what we would typically need if we were to open October 19th. Minor hockey's weekly rental that was anticipated to be 80% would be lower that week of October 19th to the 25th due to teams not likely being formed by that October 19th date. This opening date would also require staff to work at an overtime rate on Thanksgiving Monday, and the cost for this has not been calculated or included in the financial information. An opening date of October 19th would be a compressing timeline, noting the work required to be in place prior to the opening as stated in the paragraph above. Over the past few months, regulations required to reopen the arena by the provincial government has been closely monitored and analyzed. The planning stages are complete. And after this meeting, the next step is to implement these, but that does take time. We need to have the time to ensure when we open, we have done so safely for our staff, volunteers, children, and the community members. We are all very excited and eager to open the arena season, but we want to make sure that we have every detail and new COVID-19 protocol that is in place to make sure that we have a smooth opening and a successful season. I would like to now pass the financial impact to the Finance Director, Ms. Dagley.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. So on page 5 of the report, Council will see that it lays out the approved 2020-21 budget for the arena and the estimated revisions to the budget with the new protocols of the 50-person gathering limits. A combination of, some decreased revenues and some additional costs for operating the arena this season is estimated to require an additional $49,000 of funding. As we aren't anticipating additional operation savings elsewhere in the budget, a reserve transfer or future deficit financing would be required. However, at this time, staff are recommending a reserve transfer. I did want to just point out to council that should the gathering limits be decreased, or for some reason the arena needed to close early or at different periods during the season, it would have a greater impact to the budget than the anticipated $49,000. I'm happy to answer any particular questions about the finance section.
So I see the Deputy Mayor has his hand raised to ask a question or comment, make a comment.
No, a question, and it's related to this, but related to the whole situation. Like, Lisa, there's been all kinds of news bits and pieces about municipalities getting some assistance for this. Have we heard anything? Is there?
No, unfortunately, Deputy Mayor, we haven't. That would certainly give us some, something to work with. But just like you, just hearing that there is some sort of support coming, but we don't know dollar amounts or how that.
And so, should that, if we do this, then when we did get some support, would we put the money back in reserve then? Is that?
We certainly could consider that at that time. That would be high on my recommendations. If support came in to this level or higher.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make the observation that that's in no way guaranteed that we will get any additional support. Larger municipalities have been bleeding money for things like transit, public transit and other things. So I was just on a meeting with NSFM this morning, and that's something they certainly are advocating for all of our municipalities, but there's no guarantee of what that may look like for individual units. So yes, Councillor Mosher.
Yes, I just, I'd like to move, Your Worship, that the Lunenburg War Memorial Arena opens for the ice season on October 26, 2020, with an extended season until April 23rd, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? So I saw Councillor Bachmann first, but the councillors are also supporting that. The recommendation is a little longer than that. The recommended motion as it makes reference to funding and where the money comes from, but and I only point that out to see if there's issues with that or if that's just going to be part of the discussion.
Well, I think that's a separate discussion altogether. I don't want to hold up the opening of the arena for that discussion.
Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded as it was stated, and so the floor is open for discussion on that. Yes, Councillor Bachmann.
Thanks, Your Worship. Two questions, I guess. Both of them directed to Kelly. First, on amount of time allowable in a dressing room after a game is going to be approximately how much?
I originally had 15, but I believe it'll be 20.
Okay, that's reasonable. And the second for the cleaning, disinfecting, I know from being around the golf course, they have like a sprayer they put in like a yard or a garden sprayer. We'd be using the same sort of a technique at our arena.
Yes, exactly. So that's basically what we're looking at. And if for some reason that is not effective or it's not working, we can also look at getting a fogger, which is what other arenas such as in Manitoba, that's what they're using, the fancy ones. But a fogger is in the thousands. So we'll do the best that we can. And then if we see that we need to get the fogger, that will be something we will do.
No, sounds great. It seems to be working at the golf course, so hopefully it'll work at the arena. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Your Worship. If we're dividing this up, like if this passes, what happens if the financing motion doesn't pass? So shouldn't they be together? Aren't they conditional on each other? Like we can't open unless we know how it's going to be financed. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, Councillor Mosier, you can speak to that, please.
Well, I hope I'm not the only one concerned that here we are, only slightly over halfway through our budget year, and we're already recommending to draw out of reserves when I'm sure there has to be something in the budget that we can eliminate. I mean, obviously, we're not doing a lot of the things that we had originally budgeted for in our operations, so I'm sure we can find some which way to transfer these funds over to the arena. And at the end of the day, if they're not there, well, then we draw from reserves. But I don't want to have a big debate over where the money comes from, and it manipulates us into delaying the arena opening. So let's just vote on this motion, and then we can, take whatever time it takes to figure out where the money's coming from.
Well, I think I'll have to call on Ms. Dagley to speak to that. I know certainly the budget was created with an understanding that we weren't doing a lot of things that we normally would do up until at least October 1st. So those things have already been eliminated for the most part for the budget from what I recall. But Ms. Dagley, I'm sure, could speak to, how that works and if there are any availabilities elsewhere in the document.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I mean, we're in the midst of preparing the first variance report to Council for your meeting on October the 13th. But yes, the budget was prepared anticipating that lots of things would be decreased during the summer months. But also there were lots of revenues that were decreased as a result of the restrictions as well. And at this point, I can't say that there would necessarily be a particular item that could be cut to offset these additional costs. But certainly when we would be getting to the year end, we wouldn't be drawing on this reserve if there were other items that come to light, or there's additional revenues. We've anticipated, less revenue in the other hockey, etc., because we don't know how comfortable people will feel to go out to play hockey, or we're not sure, if teams will be satisfied with the later times, those sort of things. So we've reduced those revenues. If those revenues turn out to be higher than we anticipated, we won't need that reserve transfer. But at this point, with the information we know right now, that's what we're anticipating, that could be a possibility, I guess.
And further, Ms. Dagley, could I just ask, is it not our practice that should there be a surplus, which, monies that have not been expended at the fiscal year end, that the first thing we would be most likely to do would be to make that transfer to on our operating reserves?
Yes, there's two things that we usually do. If there is surpluses at year end, we tend to see if there is capital financing that was scheduled with debt and reduce that. And then if there is any over and above that, which unfortunately tends not to be the case, but then there would be a reserve transfer as well. So this would be one of those items similar to that financing with debt, this reserve transfer that would be looked at early in the year-end process.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Mosier.
Well, we still have plenty of time left to make adjustments as well. So I'm just saying we don't blindly proceed business as usual, because we know there is some business that's not as usual. So we should anticipate that and try to mitigate this loss through, you know, somehow or another doing things that aren't necessary in other places.
Councillor Risser.
Thank you, Worship. Lisa, the costs that are additional that would be funding out of the operating reserve, are those costs likely to be incurred up front or over the course of the year? I'm just thinking to the point of amending the motion that we could suggest that it be funded by operating reserves if no other revenues are available at the end of the year. But I'm just trying to get a sense of, do you need that money right now or later?
Oh, certainly, Councillor Risser, it's not necessary that it's right this minute. And some of it, it's a combination. It's not just additional costs, it's the reduction of revenue to offset the costs. So it's a combination. It would not be a reserve transfer that would happen on October 26th. It would be a reserve transfer that would happen at the end of the
year
fiscal
end.
year.
Yes.
Yes.
And so your projections, which I know how good you are about making conservative projections, so that perhaps if the projections come in more optimistically than they've been noted, we wouldn't need the operating reserve transfer at the end of year.
That is correct, Councillor Risser.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Mosier.
Well, once again, just because I seldom ever have, you know, when I challenge staff at the budget time to, you know, find reserves and to, you know, cut out, you know, unnecessary activities that can save us money, I'm just once more challenging staff here why we still have time, not to give you the cushion that you can walk away and say, well, we got the reserve to rely on. I want them to find the money up front. I want them to work for us here to find that money. I want it not to be a burden on our residents for our next tax season. So that's why I want to hold their hand to the fire here and see what they can come up with for us, that we can mitigate those things. At the same time, the arena needs to be open. As I said right from the beginning, this is one of the things that is gives quality of life to our wintertime residents, and I think it's more important for them than anything. And no matter what the cost is, we'll do it. But at the same token, I don't think this is that big a challenge. I don't think, I know it says in the board that high budget accuracy, but if high budget accuracy gives us this little flexibility, then you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And as you know, since I've been here on council since 2012, I've always advocated to have those reserves built, and it was my only opportunity to say I told you so, but now it's coming back to haunt us.
Councillor Risser, are you looking to? No, okay, sorry. Yeah, so certainly don't share Councillor Mosier's perspective on financing at all. We're certainly not giving staff by any stretch of the imagination a free pass. They always work diligently to ensure we meet our not just budget projections, but to work efficiently and effectively. And so I think it's just to everyone's benefit that we understand what that the finances have to come from somewhere. And I would rather people have an understanding that there are reserves in place, and that is what the definition of reserves is for, I believe, is to come into play. You know, how often do we have a pandemic? So it is for extraordinary circumstances when you cannot otherwise foresee the financial requirements of the organization. And I think this is a perfect example of when they do need to come into play. So I think it's inappropriate to pass a motion without understanding how it's being financed when there's an obvious change required to the original budgeted figures for doing that. But I am nonetheless extremely supportive and want to see the arena open at the earliest possible time. And we've been given good information as to how and when that can happen. Is there any further discussion or any more comments to be made?
Question.
So the question has been called, and could I ask Ms. Renton to read back the motion as it's been presented?
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Mosier, seconded by Councillor Bachman, that the Lunenburg War Memorial Arena open for the ice season on October 26, 2020, with an extended season until April 23, 2021 period. So the balance of the draft staff motion is removed at this time.
Okay, and I would just want to make another observation before we go to the question, because it's not included in the wording of the motion, is that it does not foresee any future changes to public health guidelines, which we perhaps should make provision for and giving direction to staff. So this doesn't have to come back to us necessarily, but as it stands, you've heard the motion, so and the question's been called. So all in favor? Okay, and I, for the reasons I've stated, do not support the motion. I think it's doesn't bear repeating, but I think there's a real fear among council that if we don't approve it, that there'll be in its current form, that there'll be some issue with that. So the motion has been approved and carried, and with all councillors voting in favor except for me. So is there any further discussion about this topic, having approved the opening of the arena? Yes, Councillor Bachman.
What is, thank you, Your Worship, first of all, is there the possibility to approach MODL for additional funding for our deficit? We know that approximately 60% or better of the uses of our facility come from MODL. And since we're going to incur additional deficit, can we at least put an ask into them for additional funding?
I don't know who, Ms. Cunningham or Ms. Dagley, either or.
I was going to say, well, you can always ask, but that's not necessarily a guaranteed source of revenue.
They always claim they got lots of money. Let's see them share some.
I don't think they claim it. Yes, Councillor Mosier.
Well, for that reason and many more is exactly why I eliminated that second part from that motion. We can look into all kinds of ways to raise extra funds for to mitigate these costs. So that's what I want staff to. I want to challenge staff. Maybe they should come back with a report for us and give us some recommendations that the ways we can avoid drawing from that reserve.
I guess I was just going to note, Your Worship, if I may.
Please do.
Was just that, you can't, we're not to budget for a deficit, that this is an additional cost at this point in time, which was the reason why bringing the reserve transfer forward at this time. But certainly, even without Councillor Mosier's challenge, staff continuously monitor expenses, try to figure out if there's any possible savings. I would point out, I think Councillor Mosier mentioned about budget accuracy. And your worship mentioned about a pandemic. You know, budget accuracy is built on this is what we normally do, and this is the best way to do this, and we've found efficiencies over time. We can't predict for stuff that is totally different from anything that's ever happened before, and you know, health protocols change from one day to the next. So it certainly does challenge the budget. It doesn't mean though that we're sitting back and just saying, oh, well, you know, you gave us a $50,000 reserve transfer and therefore we'll look at the budget, because that is certainly not how we operate in any of the departments within the town.
Does anyone else want to comment before I call on Councillor Mosher again? Councillor Mosher, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, again, as I said before, I mean, I've been on council for 8 years, and I've always advocated to build our reserves, and it's always been declined from, you know, well, again, budget accuracy. But my point always was that we can't be that accurate, and we don't know what the future holds. So that if we had built those reserves, we would have been in a better position for this pandemic. So that's my point. And it's, you know, can't do anything about it now. That's all in the rearview mirror. But we can do something about this $49,000. And if we all work together, there's no reason why we can't come up with that money, because we have the time to be able to do it.
So because I think I don't see any move for further motions of council. And I'm pausing to allow for that. Yeah, okay. Well, I was gonna,
I want to make a motion to adjourn before Matt does.
well, before I give you leave to do that, Deputy Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd just like to point out that contrary to what the Councillor Mosher has been saying about no progress to the reserves, I think that's an unfair way to leave this discussion on finances, and that we have made progress in that regard, and there have been changes to the way we've done so to do just what has been advocated with that regard. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Councillor Risser. All in favor? Opposed?
See, for once, I do agree with you, Rachel. I don't think we should leave it at this. You know, I think we should give staff some direction to come back to us to do this, but it's too late. We voted on it, so we're done.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.